get you because you didn't have Brian Koberger's DNA. You didn't even get Brian Koberger's DNA when you went to Pennsylvania. You got his dad's. You cheated the system because you would have never known to go collect his dad's DNA if you hadn't cheated the system. So this is it's gonna be a big deal in the courts, and I know a lot of people don't think it is, but remember, the defense won getting all that information, and if it wasn't a big deal, they wouldn't have won that. They wouldn't have got that information. So they now have that, just like in my case, they got it as well, and it's going to help them at trial. I'm telling you right now, it's going to help.
Oh, so, just wait for this though, because you said that they lied to get that evidence, right?
Yeah,
and then later on it was thrown out. So let's talk about the cell data, because what they did was look at what towers he connected to and where their coverages areas are, and they drew that possible route from the house, having no proof that he was there. They made that map where he was, and they used that to arrest him, right? It's all bullshit. Right. It was all a lie. Everything done after that is going to be fruit of the poisonous tree, including the buccal swab and the GPS data. Sorry to crush some dreams out there in the YouTube world, but the GPS ain't going anywhere.
And that's why I've jumped up and down, and Twiz, I know you're doing it too, and Swamp, you've done deep. I think we all have, in the sense that the PCA was a theory-based written document to get an arrest, but now we're starting to realize even those theories just aren't adding up. So, now the entire arrest altogether is going to be in question. And I get how the people that work with law enforcement or have worked in the past law enforcement are always going to stand up and say, oh, they got the right guy. They did it the right way. They're not going to engage in a discussion that they could have possibly done something very wrong here. And it's obvious that this area has been known to have made mistakes and done things wrong, whether they be intentional or unintentional. We know of other cases that they've done things wrong. And this, unfortunately, is going to bring a lot of negative light to the area. I just wish people would be, like you said, more open-minded. Just listen to what's actually going on. And that's why I try to recommend to people that always approach me. And I don't try to sway people in certain directions of believing anything. It's just open your mind, listen to things, and then try to make common sense out of them. If it doesn't add up to something being common sense, just like you're stating, Twiz, in regards to the cell phone records, if this was so solid, the cell phone records being as solid as they're trying to make them to be, to where they could even pinpoint a route, they would have already turned over all that information to defense. They would have proudly done it. They would have had it right in their hands. It would have been just downright nailed, and they don't have it even now. I mean, we're on our 16th motion to compel evidence. It seems like the prosecution's now struggling with where the investigators left them. And Bill Thompson needs to step up to the plate and say, hey, look, maybe we got to hold off right now on this whole thing. We need to let Brian Koberger out. I got to dismiss charges till I either get more evidence to bring up new charges, or I may just have to sit on my hands and push for a better investigation. I don't know. But where we sit right now...
Have you seen the interview with that Garrett guy yet?
I've browsed... a couple of people that that want to think that that's something. To me, it's bogus BS. But
listen to his cell phone stuff, because what he says is that he looked at what they had for the cell phone information, and by that time all they had was the PCA, and he laughed because of how bad it was. And he's a cell phone expert as well.
Yeah, I did catch that. So now it's literally two people. It's actually him and Cyray both stating that the state cell phone stuff is pretty bogus and not up to what they...
I've been saying that since before both of them said it. And I didn't know shit about cell phones back then compared to what I know now.
Yeah, I just it's sketchy. It's definitely sketchy with the shortcomings happening in the investigation. I think it's all coming to light, and we'll see. We'll see how it. I mean, I do unfortunately believe that this is going to trial. I know many people think this isn't going to make it to trial, and I wish I could jump on that and say that I didn't feel like it would either. But I do feel like this is going to trial. And it's all because of the notoriety of it. I don't think that the prosecution's not going to back out of this now because they put all their eggs into one basket with Brian Koberger. And I believe that Judge, from what I've endured and experienced in my lifetime, is one of the weakest judges I've ever seen. I don't think that he can make a ruling or a decision in a timely manner. And I don't think that he shows confidence in the decisions he is making. Like, he's not putting his foot down saying, hey, by the way, prosecution, you need to have the evidence turned over by this date, otherwise it's punishable by this. I mean, he's just kind of letting things flow as if he's like, come on, guys, I'm trying to pat you on the butt to get this to trial, no matter what's going wrong.
But exactly where is the trial going to be at? Is it going to be in Latah? Is it going to be in Boise? Where is the trial going to be at, brother?
I think everything bows down. It's going to happen right there in Latah. I think it's going to be right in the very courthouse that we're watching everything happen right now. I don't think there's going to be any change. Now don't mix my words. I didn't say I didn't feel like there should be a change. I'm just saying I don't think there will be.
I'll be super surprised if it stays here.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
It will blow my mind. I don't think it'll, at least not on that trial date. The only way it'll make it to trial, I think, is if they do a Franks hearing, which throws out the arrest warrant, which they can do right now. They have the evidence. And they'd have to rearrest Brian, recharge him, but then they don't have to waive their speedy trial right.
Right.
That's like the more likely thing that I see happening. What Anna's going to do is prove 100% that Brian didn't do this. But I still don't think it'll be the trial.
Like, I believe that in late August, here on the 29th, we're going to begin the hearing on the change of venue. I don't believe it's going to be long after that a Franks hearing is called. Like, I could see it within days. The motion will be filed, and then we're going to get into that battle.
It'll happen after the state's deadline to hand over what am I talking about? Evidence. Because the state's deadline to hand over evidence is the next week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be really quick. And then, at that point, if somehow the Franks hearing doesn't go in the direction for the defense that it could, the motions to suppress evidence will be not long after that. And they'll be violent and in a fast pace that they're going to be attacking that. And then I believe that another Franks hearing will come even right after that. So if people legitimately think this is going to trial next year like it's set to do, they're going to be sadly mistaken that this is a long ways away from trial. It's a very, very long way away.
Ebert asked, what is it? She goes, what is a Franks hearing, please?
You cut out. I couldn't hear you.
What is a Franks hearing, please?
Yeah, Ebert asked, what is a Franks hearing, please?
I'm going to defer to you guys. I think Twiz and you guys can explain it quite well. I think I'll defer and let you guys talk.
As far as I understand it, it's just their ability to challenge the validity of warrants and affidavits. So if there was like either not necessarily intentionally wrong information, but like wrong information or a lie or something, you can get warrants and affidavits thrown out.
That's the very good basic way of explaining it, and I can kind of add to it. When a defense team comes to realization that the prosecution has either manufactured evidence or secured some sort of evidence in a false manner, meaning that it is not going to be able to be utilized in a court of law, you could call a Frank's hearing, go over that said evidence, how it was collected, why it was collected, and what it truly means to the case itself. And if it's deemed as something that has nothing to do with the upcoming trial, that evidence, without actually being suppressed, is just deemed not usable. And that cuts down the amount of evidence shown for the arrest. So you're right. They're going to attack the arrest warrant, and they're going to say, well, if this isn't utilized, and this isn't utilized, and this isn't utilized, then none of this arrest warrant is actually real and true. So they're going to boot that arrest warrant out. And, you know, I've screamed in this case, you boot this arrest warrant out based off of factors like cell phone data or car data or lack of evidence on videos that they utilized to write that PCA, because remember, they deemed that the DNA was not a part of their arrest warrant, even though it's clearly stated in the PCA. They said that that was not utilized to get the arrest warrant. Well, now if we can attack that arrest warrant, guess what's gone? The buccal swab. Now, if the DNA buccal swab is no longer admissible because the arrest has been kicked out, meaning there should never have been a buccal swab, now you have no DNA. Now you have no case. Everything's gone at that point. And you can't get the DNA back into the mix at any point there forward. So never can DNA be spoken upon again in this case. If that arrest warrant gets booted, then what are you going to try him on? What are you going to try him on at that point? And that's why they should have been...
We feel like he was the guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now they've made the declaration that a lot of this is feeling and an opinion based on a theory-based collection of information. I don't know what else they may have behind closed doors, but they sure have not come out with any strength or validity saying, even without disclosing what it is that they have, I would think that we would have heard the prosecutor either in emotion or slamming his fist down on the desk in the courtroom at one of these hearings saying, trust me, we've got so much more that none of this shit matters, and they haven't done that. So I don't think they have more. I just don't.
What are your thoughts, Kiki? You're kind of quiet.
Well, I'm just listening to everybody. I did write 2 points down while you guys were talking, which was AR was talking about, or you guys were talking about, I think AR, you mentioned you didn't think it was going to move from Latah County. And I think, or I've heard, and I think it might be true, is that the more that they can, one of the defensive strategies can be pushing the trial date out so it becomes almost impossible for the community to actually accommodate the trial. And that can be another way that they can get it moved through delays. And then we were also talking about, we were just talking about a few different things, and I had wrote down that, you know, one of the most recent documents that we went through is this 16th motion to compel for evidence. And it just makes me think of that other trial in Boise, the Daybell trial, where the judge, because of certain things, put sanctions on the prosecution. And by doing that, they were able to remove the death penalty. And so when you see something like the 16th motion to compel, I mean, I wonder if that's what's coming next. So anyway, those are the things that I wrote down when you guys were talking.
Well, I believe we all know that Ann Taylor's pushing to get the death penalty off of the table at all costs, no matter what. And she's going to utilize the effect that she can't render proper counsel due to the fact she's not even getting the evidence turned over in a timely manner. So how could she ever actually prepare this for a death penalty case trial if she can't even get the actual evidence in her hands to be able to do so? So, yeah, I mean, I've been involved in cases. Like I said, I sat in jail for 7 years to be, the charges dropped the day before trial was to start because just all kinds of a mess going on. And I could see that absolutely happening in this case too. I could see at some point the prosecution saying, you know what, we're going to drop charges because they can rearrest at any point in time. I mean, murder cases have no stipulation of time on an arrest. So I think they rushed to an arrest to begin with that they should never have done. And they know they've got that effect on their side. They could actually drop charges and come back later.
Yeah, but would the burglary charge be taken off the table if they did do that, or would it still be part of the indictment?
Well, I mean, if they refile charges, they're going to refile with that charge in there. I'm actually surprised at the lack of charges for this type of crime that it's been charged, because you can, I mean, as many of you guys know, you can stack the deck on charges if you really want to, and they could get all kinds of stuff from the attack, and there's so many charges they could have filed and didn't. They would never hold Brian Koberger on a burglary charge, to wait to try to charge him later on a murder. That wouldn't do him any good. So they would dismiss all and then refile down the road.
Now, if they did, this is like a what if scenario. If they did take the death penalty off the table and they got him with life in prison, would it be life with parole or life without parole?
No, he could never get parole. Not on charges like this. Not on a quadruple. They would stack them to protect that from ever happening. Even if somehow it got squeaked through with a parole tied to the end, let's say it was life with parole, they would stack them. So he would have to serve 25 years minimum on the first charge, 25 years on the second charge, 25 years on the third, 25 years on the fourth. Then he would become parole eligible on the fourth and final case, or they could stack all four of those and then hit him with the burglary to all run consecutively. Mm-hmm. And then the burglary charge would actually be the one where the parole would become eligible. So 100 years, the burglary charge probably carries 3 years. So he would get parole after 101 years, maybe.
Yeah, he wouldn't be alive then.
No.
Mm-mm. I don't know, with modern medical technology.
Yeah.
It's not out of the question.
I watched a movie the other day when I was laying around like a Dumbo, that Demolition Man, where they freeze people like so that they come back later 200 years down the road or something. I'm thinking, if they start doing that for people with life with parole, it's like maybe I could actually get out after serving a life sentence with parole. Who knows?
I actually watched that movie today too.
Did you?
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing. I was just BSing around. But I'll tell you what, this is one of the first times, like literally, health issues have kind of just taken me off my feet to where I'm nowhere as active as I'm used to being, and I'm used to being out, about, moving, talking, doing things. And now it's, I walked my dog to go to the bathroom, a week ago, and I haven't been able to do it since. Jen's been having to do it all for me because, I'm having a hard time moving and walking. And so we'll kind of see how that's all playing out. I've been on a walker the last few days, and I hate it. I don't even want to go in public with it. So,
well, use it. The worst thing you can do is fall, AR. God.
Yeah, I learned that. I fell trying to go to the restroom the other day, and Jen just about had a heart attack because there I was laughing, laying on the floor, giggling. She's like, "This is not a funny moment. You can't even get up," you know. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know," but it just kind of made me giggle because here I lay on the floor. But so hopefully, we just keep getting more strength and keep on battling. So
It'll come a little day by day.
yeah, thankfully, yep. You just got to keep smiling and stay positive, and you know, it's like I think all of us are feeling as we get a day older. You know, we start to feel it a little bit more. We don't want to acknowledge it, but you know, as we get a little bit older in age, we start to feel the little creaks and the little prods, and
Oh
you
yeah.
know. But thankfully, I've got a great support system. You know, an amazing wife that pushes me to continue to just try to keep getting better and get mentally stronger, because there for a while when I got the diagnosis and, you know, I'm sitting there and you know, I haven't really shared what all, you know, got brought down with, you know, the ambulances having to come get me out of the room. And I couldn't get up. I was in the shower and it looked like a murder scene in the house with blood everywhere from, you know, stuff going on. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't stand back up from an injury or not feeling well. And they rushed me to the hospital, and I've never had to endure that before. So it's an eye-opening experience, but she's pushing me to be smarter within my thinking and the positivity, and all of you guys have been very supportive too. I get a lot of messages every day keeping me going and giving me ideas. And so just so that some out there don't really know, because I haven't disclosed it, I had a portion of my large intestine removed, and next week they're going in, they're going to open up and look at my kidneys a little bit deeper, because they feel as though my right kidney is at full non-functioning point, and my left kidney, and unfortunately, is pretty low on functionality as well. And that's a stem of the dialysis for the years upon years that I've been on it. So we're going to see what we can do with that. But so right now I'm healing from an initial surgery on the large intestine that they removed some cancerous tumors and some things out of, and we feel as though that went pretty well. And we'll see what next week brings. But that's why I'm saying we're going to find out real quick whether I'm going to be back continuing to work alongside all of you and be able to do the content, or if I'm going to be down for, you know, some time frame. I think they said that a hospital stay for me, if I do have to go through the next wave of surgeries, the hospital stay is going to be 6 months to 8 months, as they'll have to remove a kidney and then try to figure out where we go from there, because I'm not eligible for a transplant or anything of that nature. So we'll gauge it all out at that point. So positivity, that's all I can say to everybody. Stay positive and keep your heads up and keep moving forward. That's what I'm doing. So
we have a question from Heather Fitzgerald on the screen. At True Crime Cult question: why do you think the MSM is still trying to run the same narrative, especially after this survey results being filed?
I don't know. You guys answer.
Well, I just don't want to skirt over what you just said, AR. And, you know, I just, even though you're not a candidate for a transplant, I know someone who's living right now late into their 80s with one kidney. And it's not saying there wasn't complications, but you can live a good, long, healthy life. So we're just all praying for you. And thanks for sharing so much of your personal story, because, you know, somebody needs to hear it out there tonight. And anyway, just want you to know we love you. So, and as far as the means, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate it. I think all of you, obviously. It's a great support system. We're all here for each other. This one big family, and it's very much appreciated. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I remember starting on my true crime journey, and I'm actually thankful that it's led me to this group right here. Because we're all friends and we all support each other, and we've built a pretty good community within this true crime community because we're all working partners.
I agree. So I know, Robert, you read a question. I'm sure you guys need to jump in and answer that. It was a good question. I just don't even remember what it was.
About MSM still pushing the same narrative, even though the survey questions have already been, the survey has already been filed.
Well, I mean, you gotta. I'll throw my 2 cents in. Then I'd love to hear from the others as well. But I'm just gonna state, MSN, is about the money. I feel as though the agenda and the narrative that they pushed has brought in a substantial amount of viewers and believers and followers. Otherwise, people like Nancy Disgrace and Banfield and them would not be stuck on a certain narrative. They know that's where the money's flowing. And it just, in my opinion, in my perspective, and I hate to put it out there this way, but the guilt is always more profitable than the innocent, because people just like to know the story of how and why somebody's guilty and get to watch the interrogation of it and then the investigation, and it's all so mesmerizing to them, where innocent just means that you don't know anything, and that's not as profitable. So MSN is making huge amounts of money, and they're sharing that money with people that are willing to back up that narrative and flow with it. And that's why the Gonzalez, I shouldn't even get into this, but the Gonzalez family is willing to put themselves out there. They're not doing these interviews for free, ladies and gentlemen. These interviews are not being paid for. Kara Northington did not get on to Ashley Banfield's News Nation for free. That she got paid for that, and that's why I say mainstream media is making buku dollars. Books are being written. All of this being happening. Now show me, out of anybody making the huge amounts of dollars in MSN or writing books, show me one person that's claimed innocence. I'll wait.
I can't say there's one, but there's a couple that are like somewhere in the middle that aren't like terrible guilters,
Right. Well, and I'm not saying that there's not people in the middle. I'm just saying, show me a book, show me a documentary, show me anything that's profited money that's been put out and produced outside of YouTube or us creators or stuff like that, that's profited on innocence.
Can't think of one.
Yeah. Same here. Guys, guilty pays. I'm telling you right now. If all of us as content creators,
until defamation comes through.
Right. But I'm just saying, like right now, if we all wanted clicks and money, if I wanted to really build my channel and have 40, 50, 60,000 subscribers, all I got to do is flip over to the guilty side and explain from my experience how I know Brian Koberger's guilty. And guess what? My views and everything would skyrocket. And people would like me more. People would like me more. But I'm not going to do it. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to make the very grand statement because I've had people ask me. I do not believe Brian Koberger's guilty. I do not see him as a person that committed this crime, and I'm not going to switch teams and state that I feel as though he could possibly have done it, because I don't feel like he did. So that's where I stand, and I'm very secure in that position. At the end of the day, even if they find him guilty, I'm still going to have questions in regards to the actual investigation and the way this was handled. Sure, I'll, at some point, if something comes out that showcases there's no other way, then I'll admit that I was wrong. But at this point, I'm not changing my stance. So I don't.
Neither am I.
I stand right where I stand.
Show me some evidence.
That's just it. Why is Bill Thompson sealing everything up? I mean, he says it's for to protect it for a fair trial. Well, that may be the case, but at the same time, 16 requests for evidence, and he hasn't handed over all of it, but yet he wants to get a protective order for the IGG so Ann Taylor and her defense team can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, This is unfortunately our court system, and
then Ann Taylor responds and laughs at him for sealing it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look outside to just even the Brian Koberger Idaho 4 case. Imagine how many cases this is happening across the United States, across the board, on a day-to-day basis. This is happening,
and we just don't hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat in jails that house 3,000 people, and on a daily basis, I would see 100 to 200 people go home with charges dismissed, or they won at trial, false evidence. I mean, I saw it daily, and people never want to recognize that. They don't want to talk about it. Not everybody is always guilty. I mean, that's why we have a system that we have, is to put people through the justice system to find fair equality in trials. But right now, I think, we're just at a situation where maybe law enforcement's understaffed, maybe under-budgeted, under-trained. There's a lot of issues going on, and investigations aren't being conducted as smoothly or as carefully as I think they should be.
Yeah, see, just like with Brett Payne, he didn't when he got hired to the Moscow Police Department, he had no police background. He had just come out of the military, and they hired him like pronto. And
I think he was a military police for like 3 years or something.
So he was an MP?
Yeah.
But I mean, what blew my mind is I know you were probably sitting in the courtroom that day, Twiz, was when Ann Taylor asked him about, I forgot what it was about, and he goes, I always give my paperwork to the people who's smarter than me. and then when Jennings asked him, well, who told you to say all this? And he goes, you did. And and I noticed Bill Thompson was turning purple.
Hey, Robert?
Yeah?
Somebody left a super chat. Can you display that for us? I just want to say Motoman MX, thank you so much for the blessing. Do you see that, the big yellow one? I don't know if it's showing up.
I see it.
Could we highlight that?
Yeah. It says, it seems that here we go. It seems all the emergency response money was used to fuel a narrative of guilty to push a guilty verdict because they couldn't be bothered to investigate the case properly.
Well, that's an interesting statement. Do you think that, I mean, I would imagine with the $1 million, they have to allocate it, or obviously have limits to how they could spend it. But I wonder if media is one of those expenses they're allowed to. You bring up a really good question that, I don't necessarily know the answer to, but we definitely will find out an answer to that. What do you guys think?
I know for a fact in some of my cases when I was younger, a part of the allocation of funds was for actual discussion with the media and to put out information. I don't know if that's the case in the Idaho, but I know in my case they had a certain allocation of money that was to go out for the press releases and the different, conferences that they had and discussions. So that was all covered and paid for.
So money from the state was used to publicize the prosecution's narrative against you?
Yeah, I mean, it went out through the press conferences, so they had to pay for the venues that the press conferences were held at. They had to pay for the time of people that attended those and were involved in those. And yeah, so they had a certain allegation. I mean, obviously, I don't know how much of the funds or that was never disclosed to me. And I was never one that cared, but the state's funding has numerous breakdowns of what the money can be utilized for, and they have to show where they allocated that to if the demand is there. But anybody and everybody can put in an actual motion to the court to get that information. I know JLR's done it a couple times already with this case.
That would be interesting. I wonder if PK could use that later on too.
We got one from Leslie and Billy, a $2 super chat. Love you all. Thanks for all that you do. And then Jackie said a $4.99 super sticker.
Thank you so much for the blessings. We really appreciate it. And, the chat makes the conversation so much better because you bring up all of the things that were, all the questions and all the, it's very thought-provoking in the chat today, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
Meg P has a question for us. Does anyone know the undercover officers' names?
Well, they would be undercover for a reason, so that would not come out till trial.
Unless she's talking about Banfield. I don't know.
Rosie was one of them.
See what's weird about Banfield, guys, is when they did that alcohol stop, you had those college students go, "Well, we thought you were imaginary."
That was such an unconstitutional stop. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
That's why all those kids' tickets were dropped like that week. That's crazy.
Yeah, that whole situation just never sits right. Just never sits right. But
you can't look at somebody and decide that they're underage. So just because they're walking across the street, you have no reason to stop and talk to them. That's wild. Yeah, they're just assuming because most of the time people in the frats are like the younger ones, either freshman or sophomore. So they just know that if you're walking towards the frats, you're probably underage. That's why they're just standing there waiting for them to cross to stop them. I still feel like you had to have a reason, though. Just like if they're going to pull me over in my car, you have to have a justifiable reason to pull me over. And I've definitely learned my rights through the years. Like I don't just hand over my driver's license and my insurance when they ask me for it. I go through the whole routine with them. Why'd you pull me over? What gave you the reasoning that you were looking for that? I mean, I go through it all before I'll even give up my ID. So. And then they get mad at you for standing up for the rights that they swore an oath to protect. Oh yeah, they get very mad, very upset. Very upset. I wonder why people are starting to not like police more and more. Well, then it's even more funny when they go back to their car. Once I do actually hand over my license, and they go back to their car and they run me, and next thing you know, guns are drawn. And my wife still to this day freaks out because every time we get pulled over, I get pulled over, which is one of the reasons why I don't drive. I have to get out, lay on the ground, be cuffed, let them go through my background history. They have to search my car. So I just don't drive anymore because of all that. It's too much of a hassle. Because of your history? Oh yeah. I have crimes in my past that were endangerment of law enforcement. So they take it to the extreme. Even though these things are so old, so outdated, they still take it to the extreme. So.
And we have a super chat from Meg P. I saw a video where the undercover cops were walking to their car, and the law enforcement officers, or LE, spotted spotted him weird.
I saw a video where the
I'm
undercover
trying to-
walked to their car. Oh wait, where'd it go?
I just don't know where that video is, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I've seen it.
I mean, I don't trust the
him?
cops around here, especially with underage kids. That's why, like on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday nights, like I will not go driving around Pullman because they'll literally pull you over for anything.
Is the golf course in Pullman still a 9-hole course with the little fireplace and everything in there and the bar, like it used to be in the past?
I've never
I
really
remember
been
when
there.
Washington State offered me a full ride scholarship when I was 17. I'd already been locked up, for a couple of years, but I was a great golfer, and I had, obviously good grades in school. I was already taking college classes, but they offered me a scholarship, so we went up to visit the campus, and the little golf course was just amazing. But I had like a little bit of a snow drizzle because it must have been November-ish or something while we were in the area, but you could easily just walk into town to where the bars were and the parties were happening, and then obviously you could just cruise right across the border into Moscow and have a few more beers if you wanted to, but it seemed like
I think they made a golf course when I lived here before, so it might be full size now. I'm not sure.
Makepeace says, I have it, Twiz. Can I send it to you?
I was also thinking if you could tell us the timestamp on it too, it'd be helpful. We'd definitely look into it. I'm trying to think if it was because when you initially see the runners and they yell to them, was it then or was it when they were walking to the other location on the side of the street?
At Twizzlestick is the video where it looks like one of the roommates walking somewhere.
Oh, that one is so weird. I don't know if they were undercover though. But basically like a cop car like stops right on that, I think it's Queen Road. It's right by the house. And they just walk away, but the dash cam is still on. And then eventually you see a girl walk by. And I think it is Dylan, I'm not sure. But that one's really weird.
Twiz, I think they're all weird.
Well, I mean, that's true.
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, when we reflect back, and it's crazy to see, because obviously nobody knew this crime was going to transpire. But now looking back from today to back then and watching these videos of people answering the doors at the parties and the way people interacted, when the cops knocked on the back door and you got Hunter coming out first and then Kaylee next and Hunter hanging out after. I mean, it's just all weird. It's all weird, to watch Xana, come out a little bit, intoxicated, but still trying to be respectful with the officers and answer. It's just like, it's such a hard thing to reflect back upon because we know loss of life and just the tragedy that happened, but then also, I feel like there's so many oddities that add up to the worst investigation possible. But even the fact that the officers were in the area before the crime even happened, just minutes before. And it's like, what the hell? That never happens, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Too weird.
See, like, for the longest time, that ladder was laying next to the house. And then all of a sudden, it's propped up on, near the ledge that leads to Xana's room. And the only thing I can think of is that maybe Hunter Johnson used it the day that he discovered Xana and Ethan's bodies. Because maybe he tried to get in through the door and he couldn't get in through the door, so he went outside to grab that ladder and climbed up on that ledge to try to access the window to Xana's room. And that's the only way I can think that's why that ladder was propped up there.
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. No idea.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Sadly, I don't even think the investigators have an idea. I don't know.
No. I don't. I'm just. I'll actually kind of be sad if this doesn't go to trial because then we won't get all of the evidence shown, you know?
Yeah, I this would be a devastating cold case. Let me tell you, this would just be a tremendously devastating cold case. Now, obviously, we all want true justice and the right people to be held accountable for this. But at the end of the day, if this went to a cold case, I just don't know. The families would never be able to recover from it. We already know Brian Koberger and his family will never be able to recover from this. I mean, this is just devastating across the board. And then for it to be wrapped up and tied with a bow of you'll never know what actually happened, I think that would make many people sick to their stomachs for sure.
Yeah. It would be really sad.
The house down. I mean, and the way Bill Thompson put it was, the scene of the house has changed. No, the feeling of the house has changed. So now you have these jurors who won't be able to walk through the house and be able to hear everything that happened that night. They have still pictures and they have Oculus glasses to see the 3D renderings of the house. Now, is that going to hurt the case, or by not having the physical house there?
I think so.
It sure
Because
as
you
hell
won't be
can
able
help
to.
it.
You can't hear anything. You might be able to see like a decent reproduction of it, but I don't know. Everything about it's weird.
This is just kind of my thought process, and I'm not even going to get into what it would mean for the defense to have the crime scene there. But for the prosecution, if you're putting on a case against somebody and you want the jury to legitimately feel the emotion of what the truth of this crime is, you walk them through that crime scene. You take them to the front door. You let them smell the trees around the home. You let them get a feel of the area it's in. And then you walk them into that crime scene. You don't even have to let them be in there for long. And you just let them get the feel of it. And let me tell you, that really would bring the jury a little bit more into the fact of paying attention. They would definitely pay more attention because they would be in the realm of feeling where these people lost their lives. That's just my thought. But
yeah, we have another super chat. Because if this turns out into a cold case, would the interview room guy be back out in Idaho looking for more gloves?
I hope he comes back out.
It's very triggering for me to talk about that scenario. I just don't like that the podcaster was so close that he pointed out evidence to the police. I always thought that was the glove that they submitted into evidence, but I've heard that it's a different glove, but I have nothing to back that up. But
I've heard he found it like several days after the actual glove was found. But either way, I just want him to come back because I have some words for him.
Okay, we have a question from Chris McGraw. In terms of the house, I always wondered if the house was in compliance with local building codes. It was off campus, so the liability to the university is minimal, but still.
Well, I don't feel like he could be in compliance considering there was no downward exit from the upstairs balcony to start with. So that would be a very potential fire hazard because you don't have an exit from the upstairs other than the inside stairwell, which if a fire's right there, you can't get out. And people say, oh, you just jump off the balcony. Well, no, you have to have an actual exit. It's mandatory. So I don't believe the addition was done correctly, and maybe they just didn't get people out there to inspect that. But I don't believe
might have some like weird laws on that because in my room, like I'm in like a half basement, but there's a 2x4 ladder going up to the window so I could get out.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right, but I just feel as though there would have to be something from that back balcony, because even the police mentioned it in the body cam, and they clearly stated there was no exit there. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to be the building code.
I also wanted. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert.
Go ahead, Kiki. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say one quick thing. When we were talking about the Oculus, I wrote this down, which is so like all these things we're mentioning, the feel of the house, the sounds in the house. Even when we talk about the ladder, we don't know what they're going to tell about the exit and entry to the house, not having to physically see the ladder. But the biggest thing I think when we talk about using the Oculus to recreate the crime scene or something similar to it is how are they going to recreate the sounds to walk people through the PCA or what they think happened with Dylan's statement? Because we've heard so many different ways that that's been presented to us. Who's saying what, where she was when she said it. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to walk them through the PCA, I think it's a bigger challenge now that people can't surmise, okay, was it BK saying this? Was it Kaylee saying this? Was it Ethan saying this? It's going to be something they can't really recreate with virtual reality, no matter what they do. I don't think that they could. Anyway, so I really think that it's going to be hard to present the PCA using the Oculus. I just still, to myself, can't think of any reason other than I can't think of any reason why they would tear down that house other than we know there's a possible tort lawsuit against the city and the university if anything was done wrong, and that two of the families reserved that right. And is this house the biggest piece of evidence in more than one case? Another possible lawsuit. So I can't think of any reason to tear down the house if your primary goal is justice. I don't know.
Go ahead, brother. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say I'm truly obviously in agreement with you, Kiki, but I also feel as though it'd be very important for the jury to be able to feel the compactness of that area of where Dylan's door is, the stairs, the hallway into Santa's room. That is not a big area, and for people to not fully understand how noise wasn't heard or what, they need to get the full gamut of what the feel of that house is and how actually shoulder to shoulder you would legitimately be. And I believe, and this is just something I personally would really like to know, how the hell did the suspect walk right past Dylan when they could literally just high five each other in that close proximity and never even know she was there? And you need to be able to explain that to a jury. You really do. And without the home being there, they're never going to get that feel. They're going to feel like a normal open floor spaced home where you have more room to move around, and you actually don't.
I mean, just looking at the house when they tore it down, it looked like it was just built with plywood. I mean, there was no insulation, no nothing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely cheaply. The addition was definitely cheaply done, but I mean, the whole home itself didn't seem to be the most glamorous of well-built homes.
It's a very odd design.
You should see my house.
Okay, Heather sent me something in Discord.
Sorry about the airplane. Let me mute myself.
It says by December 17th, 2022, lab analysts were aware of 2 additional male DNAs within the house where the deceased were located, and another unknown male DNA on a glove found outside the residence on November 20th, 2022. This date, the defense is unaware of what sort of testing, if any, was conducted on these samples other than the STR DNA profiles. Further, these 3 separate and distinct male DNA profiles were not identified through CODIS, leading to the conclusion that the profiles did not belong to Mr. Colbert. You're muted.
Which PCA are we looking at? Which state?
No, it wasn't the PCA. It was about the glove that was found, and the other two unknown male DNAs found in the house.
Okay. So we've determined it's definitely a different glove than the one that Chris McDonough found.
No, it was the one Chris McDonough found.
No way. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about Frank's hearings, but I know what 12 has taught me because we did like a 2 or 3 hour live stream on it. Now, again, I don't know all the facets of the Frank's hearing, but one of them is the credibility of the person who collected the piece of evidence and the chain of custody of that piece of evidence. And I mean, I don't know where it goes, but one of the problems you see is if a police officer is involved with something controversial and you hear like on a TV show, like, oh, you're getting put on traffic duty or whatever, desk duty or something. There's a good reason for that. And that's because if they go onto a crime scene and collect evidence, they have to settle that with internal affairs first and make sure there was no wrongdoing, because if this is all my understanding too, and I'm not an expert. If there was some sort of issue with internal affairs, then it could affect future cases because they rely on that credibility. So I'm just thinking back, I don't know if I'm not going to go through Chris McDonough's history, but I just wonder, would that evidence, if he collected it or spotted it, would that break that chain of custody? Would that be a problem if there was something on Chris McDonough's record that was unsavory? I don't know, but that's what it immediately makes me think of as a Frank's hearing. Maybe for that, I don't know if you can throw out a piece of evidence with a Frank's hearing or if it's just about throwing about the entire search warrant, but I mean, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And I'm sorry if I'm way off base saying that. And I'm sorry, Chris McDonough.
What do you have to say about the AR?
Yeah, I was just going to ask AR.
Yeah, I mean that's a powerful statement, obviously, that you just made. I mean, it's going to be very interesting in this case to see why they felt like certain things were important as evidentiary value, yet they didn't even want to look into trash cans in victims' rooms. They didn't want to look at the outside trash right outside the back door. They obviously tossed the black jacket hanging on the fire hydrant out front just onto the ground as if it meant nothing. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what they deem as important evidence and what's not. I mean, I know for a fact, I mean, if they have this whole theory-based drive, like, Twiz is tearing apart, where they go on this long tangent of a drive, why didn't they do any searches along that route to see if they could find a murder weapon or clothing or anything involved with the case? This case seems like one of the biggest eye-glaring issues with the case is the lack of want to even research evidence or figure out if it is evidence or not. But maybe I'm just not educated to know how they go through their processes. So
I thought Moto Max MX made a good comment too. I was reading through some of them, and he said they ruined the house to control the narrative. And I mean, that is actually kind of what happened, no matter what way you look at it. And there was another one by Chris McGraw, both have been making really great comments. Oh shoot. I'm having trouble because my mouse I didn't change the battery yet, sorry. It's just every time I turn it off, it works, but no, I'm screwed.
I think it's not only narrative based, but money based as well, because you have Scott Green in an interview stating that he wants to build some low income student housing there, and we all know the prior houses history with sororities and fraternities. Even when Hunter Johnson was talking to the one, I think it was Blaker, the heavy set officer with the beard, and when Blaker made the comment, we know that this is an off-campus sorority house, and threatened him with the Greek Council and everything else. The night that Hunter Johnson and that one kid answered the door, and none of the roommates were there, even though it looked like Bethany who answered the door that night. But knowing the University of Idaho, they're going to want to build another off-campus housing for a sorority or fraternity there.
They already had it on Google Maps that an apartment building was going up there.
Yeah, I have a gut feeling more houses are coming down in that area, to be honest with you. I think the neighboring houses are going to come down pretty in the relative future. I think they're going to change the whole dynamic of that neighborhood, and I don't think it's going to take long for them to do it. I could see a lot of changes coming in this upcoming summer break. We'll see.
I did see two other points that I thought were really relevant to bring up, and Chris McGraw wrote both of them in here. So one of them is he says, and of course we have to verify this. I tried to Google it while we were talking, but I couldn't find anything. But he says they did make a list of how they allocated those emergency funds, but it's very vague. And then there was another good comment right after that I have right here. It says, in terms of the house, I always wondered if the house was in compliance with local building codes. It was off campus, so the liability to the university is minimal, but still, I don't know. It's a thought, at least. We'll never know now.
Yeah, I think it's funny how the U of I tries to distance themselves from the house and from the murders by calling it their off campus. Every time we hear some news, oh, their off-campus home. Oh, they were killed in their off-campus home. It's the university tries to distance themselves from this tragedy. I mean, even with Pi Beta Phi. The first couple of days, they had this glowing memorial for Maddie and Xana. And then at Christmas time, please come put an angel on the tree for those that we have lost. Everything just seems to be like a distance from the actual unalivings, and from what I've heard is that the university and some of the fraternities and sororities were getting mad with the flyers up about information for the deaths of the kids.
Where did you hear the word? Yeah.
It was on this one video I watched that they were upset because of all the flyers showing Xander, Maddie, Kaylee, and Ethan, and the number to call, and it was during rush week too, so.
It was all just done to make people forget about it so they can continue making money at the university.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of financial situations going on with the U of I, especially with the purchase of the new university. They had a lot on the line. A lot of money was on the line.
It's not even just U of I, though. It's going to be like all schools. Like WSU, they didn't talk about this.
Yep.
When did they come out and talk about Brian after he was arrested? They were trying to squash the whole thing, too.
In that interview with Cassie that recently came out, that podcast on Spotify. So she was Brian Kohlberger's student. And even though a lot of people said she was detached herself from their opinion listening to it, she was basically saying, I knew it happened, but it just didn't quite hit home until I went to Thanksgiving break and people were talking about it, because the campus literally did have that attitude. They encouraged kids to go back to class almost immediately, and they basically said, this has nothing to do with us. This is none of our business. That's her words, not mine. But that is Interesting.
Oh yeah.
But what
I
else
mean,
are you gonna do?
do you guys ever think there's going to be a case that's going to be as spoken of as this one? And trust me, I get what people say. I mean, it's not spoken about across the country, but to me, just the way that this case is always, even here in Vegas, it's crazy. When I was in the hospital and I was joking around with the nurse that I couldn't even, here I am half dead in a bed and I can't put my cell phone down. She's like, "Oh, you must be looking at the Idaho 4 case. I was watching a video on that earlier today." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I mean, I can't even go to the hospital to get away from the Idaho 4 case in Vegas." I mean, I think it's spoken upon more than what people really think that it is. And it's like, wow, I remember the Jodi Arias case. I remember the Chris Watts. I remember a lot of these big cases, and there was a lot of talk, but it just didn't seem like this one. I mean, and you've got big cases going on right now. You got the serial killer back east. You got one in Austin. You got these things happening, but nobody's talking about it. You just, it is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, see what's weird is you got that vandal alert that went out, and it went out at 4:00. Asking everyone to shelter in place, and then
just think about that though too. Like they knew about this at noon, and they put out the message at 4.
Yeah, well,
like even that was late.
Yeah, here's what's funny: the Washington State University did one at the same time. Moscow, this is from WSU. Moscow Police Department is conducting an investigation of a homicide that occurred adjacent to the University of Idaho campus. At this time, we are not aware of any threat to the WSU Pullman campus community.
Well, I mean, they obviously thought there was a threat. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made a statement like that.
Yeah.
Good way to cover up your feelings of a threat, right? Just say there's not one.
Okay. And how would you know? So it's like saying it definitively. I mean, is that how all of our institutions announce things to us? Like when we really could possibly endanger and they don't know, they just tell us we're safe. Is that really the way to handle things? I think being honest would have probably struck a better chord. And,
yeah.
I have a friend.
No.
I have a friend who has a daughter that goes to a university, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I think somebody got stabbed, or they got threatened with a knife or something like that. But like the president of the university went behind like the board's back and had all of the 911 calls forwarded to the university's 911 center or something like that. Something just weird. But they will always do weird stuff like that because they don't want it to come out and cause panic, because then people will leave and they don't make money. They don't care about these kids. They care about the money.
I mean, sadly, a lot of our economics in life is coming down to the dollar. Even, mainstream media. I remember as a kid sitting down watching mainstream media or CNN or whatever it was, because it was always so crazy to watch O.J. Simpson cruise down the highway and all this stuff, but it was nowhere near what it is today. And it's all about the dollar. It's all about the dollar.
Yeah, see, just like in what case does the prosecuting attorney go out the next day after the murder?
I couldn't understand you. Hopefully somebody else maybe heard that.
Yeah, I don't have
I said what? Yeah, I said in what murder case does the prosecuting attorney go out the next day to the crime scene?
Yeah, I don't know if that's normal or not.
I thought he was there the day of.
Yeah, like
I thought he was there
later.
the day. Yeah, I think he was walking the street.
Prosecuting attorney Bill Thompson on Monday, November 14th, outside the 1122 King Road house.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he wasn't there the day before, though.
Yeah, I think he was there the day of. They show pictures of him walking around looking at what investigators are looking at. I don't know. Most times prosecutors aren't involved till the case is filed. But
yeah,
that's just what I know. Not saying that's not true. This is Idaho. This is different shit.
Yeah, it might just be because it's like a small town. Maybe most of the time prosecutors are busy doing something.
Yeah, I mean,
And
this
going
is
to be involved. So I mean, he probably, if like you said, it's a small city, a small town, so they know who the players are going to be involved. Even with Ann Taylor, I mean, how many death penalty certified attorneys are there in that county? Not a lot, I think.
and I think with Ann Taylor going to work with the state, as a state public defender, does that get her out of the out from under the thumb of Bill Thompson to get stuff done?
Yeah, a little bit.
well, she's filed to do her own personal litigation now too. But one of the things that caught me off guard in this case that I never personally seen before ever in my lifetime of criminal history is a public defender at the crime scene before the client even gets extradited back from Pennsylvania to Idaho, because he hasn't even applied as of yet or been determined by the court to be eligible for representation through the state. You have to go through a hearing and a whole packet that's filed on your behalf to prove your financial means for them to even give you a lawyer. Yet she was already at the crime scene before he was in the state.
Heather Fitzgerald just made a very interesting statement. The Kootenai County prosecutor is Stanley Mortensen. Now, I'm wondering if he's any relation to Dylan Mortensen.
A lot of people have raised that question, but I don't believe so. But then again, you never know. I mean, you never know, but I don't think so. There are attorneys in her family, though.
Now, what do we know so far, guys, about Dylan Mortensen? Because, I mean, the last thing I heard was, a statement her father put out a while back on X that, she's a social recluse. She suffers from tremendous survivor's guilt, that she is seeking spiritual help in her community to get over the tremendous survivor's guilt that she has. She plays video games all day, and she smokes weed. But there was apparently there was a spotting of her at the Pi Beta Phi house. I don't know if it was at the Boise campus of Idaho State University or at the Moscow campus, but she was spotted at a event for Pi Beta Phi.
She's a big sister.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think her dad was just trying to protect her. Is my take on what was said. But that also shows that there was drugs in the house, so I guess that narrative goes away.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to put anybody under the bus, but she dated a known dealer, and she probably dabbled herself. I mean, it is what it is. That doesn't mean that she would be the reasoning for things happening or whatnot. It could be, may not be. Who knows? But
yeah, I'm not trying to say that she's the reason that it happened. I'm just saying drugs were probably in the house.
I mean, I've always said there's more reasoning to this other than the guy that just kind of went AWOL thinking that he was, trying to date a girl and she turned him down. There's far more to this. But
we have a question from Motoman X. Is it possible that they had a suspect or had someone charged before Brian?
I think we would have known, but maybe.
I don't think so.
Look at the trouble they made showing us they had Brian. I don't think they would have missed an opportunity.
But also, I mean, What would you have him charge him or her? I should say him or her slash. What would you have charged him with that wouldn't have come out to this point? And I know the defense was screaming, at the very beginning, they wanted to know who the informant was or if there was a co-defendant, and that's all fine and dandy. I just don't think we could be this far into this without knowing of another arrest.
Now, do we know if it's factual or non-factual that Brian asked when he was arrested in Pennsylvania, did you arrest anybody else? Do we know if that was a factual statement or was it a non-factual statement?
I don't think we'll ever know whether that's factual or non-factual.
Was it Sever Labar? Is that who made the quote? I can't remember who initially made that, but it was Labar.
I think it was his attorney there in Pennsylvania, because apparently, according to his attorney, Brian made the statement when he was arrested. Did you arrest anybody else?
Right.
But I don't know if that's a factual statement or maybe the attorney misheard him, or if it was like just a rumor that was made up.
I just don't think we'll ever know. I don't, even if it didn't happen, I don't think it will ever be, rectified. It's something that's been said, happened, and I think we could all debate on it, whether we in our gut feel like it was said or wasn't said, but I don't think we'll have an actual confirmation either way, ever.
Unless Brian tells us. I wouldn't be surprised if he did say it, though.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, but then, in this case, I think everything wouldn't surprise me, but then everything could also be a surprise, so you just, the only person that's going to be able to deem what Brian Kohberger said or did or how he went about whatever he did is Brian Kohberger. And maybe one day he'll open up and speak about it, or he may just never speak about it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Very true, AR, Tina says. And Heather says that the attorney never actually said those words out of his mouth. I know the exact I will find the clip because I know where I heard it. It was, I can't remember which interview it was, but it was one of the bigger ones, and I want to say it was with Court TV. But I think it might have been the one in October where the Gonzalez spoke for the first time, or they came out and they first started talking about social media. But I'll get the clip. That's interesting. And I do think it came, the initial reports were that Labar said it, but yeah, we'll get a good answer for you. Thank you for bringing it up.
I believe, though, that the lawyer said he thinks he may have said that. I don't think he clearly stated that he heard him say it.
Heather says, just to clear that up, she says it's law and crime that that was.
And she said it is not the Cuomo one. This is a diagram of the house, on where people, where like Dylan is there on the second floor. Yeah, Dylan and Bethany are the ones in the gold, and then Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan are the ones in the blue, and then you have Murphy right there in Kaylee's room. Okay, Dylan's here, and you have Maddie. Now you have Maddie and Kaylee up here, and then over here you have Xana and Ethan. I don't know how Dylan could hear what she said would sound like Kaylee playing with Murphy when Murphy was over here and he was above the kitchen. She would have had to have heard Xana. No, she would have had to have heard Maddie and Kaylee being murdered directly above her. That's what she thought was the sound of Kaylee playing with Murphy. She would have had to have been hearing them being murdered directly above her. And then, of course, you have Bethany on the first floor, who probably didn't hear anything that night. But how can somebody not like Steve G said there was one hell of a battle going on the second floor. How can you not hear? How can you, being Dylan, not hear one hell of a battle going on the second floor? And you open your door 3 times that night, and the third time you see the killer walking towards you. Everything with Dylan's statement just don't make no sense.
Well, it's also what MPD is telling us she said.
Yeah,
and they've lied about a lot, so.
I think at this point, the only way anything ever comes to tuition is if she steps in front of the jury in the courtroom and testifies at trial. That's going to be the first time that we hear from her own mouth. Whether that makes it make any more sense or doesn't, we'll have to wait and see. But I know, Robert, we've dissected it and dissected it and dissected it. And we've all got our opinions and our feelings. And now the only thing that could come from, this is actually hearing her in her own words explain why, how, when. And at that point, it's going to be up to her to utilize her own platform and her own words to either make it make sense, or I hate to say it for her sake, but it's going to not make sense, and she's going to get thrown even more to the wolves. But it's going to be up to her to rectify whatever comes of that, because we can talk about it all we want to, and it's never going to change the fact that we all have our opinions and we all just don't feel comfortable with the scenario. And she's the other one that can fix that. So we'll see.
Yeah. Is she even going to testify? That's the question. Because, yes, Bethany was in that house. Was in the house that night. She was on the first floor, and Bethany is already fighting coming back to Idaho, which I don't understand. If you're in that house and you're part of this case, why fight so hard to come back to Idaho? Why have your attorney make a statement that you want nothing to do with Idaho, you want nothing to do with the house, you want nothing to do with the case? But there was also reports that she was scared to come back because she thought she might get arrested for obstruction of justice. Well, not calling 911 for 8 hours, isn't that obstruction of justice?
It is, but at this point, all of that's going to be null and void. We're past the preliminary hearing stage that could have happened, didn't happen. We're past the grand jury indictment. These ladies are going to have to testify. They have no choice about it. The defense will bring them out as hostile witnesses. They're going to be on the stand. They're going to be at the trial. They can't get out of it. I don't care what people say. They won't get out of it. They'll be there. And if they're not, they'll be sitting in a jail cell until they decide to testify. So they will be in front of everybody. I think my opinion is they'll close the court while they testify. I think that will be the protective measure that the prosecution's able to secure for them. But they're going to have to testify. They're going to be there. So neither one of them's getting out of it. If they are survivors and they are deemed to have been in the house when the crime happened, they'll be testifying. So,
I'd like to add a couple things to this too. I just had 2 statements I wanted to bring up. The first one about Dylan, and if the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, the way that was worded about her being arrested, coming back, I heard that it's standard terminology in those, saying that you're not going to be arrested if you come back to testify or to make a statement. And I could be wrong. Somebody can put it in the chat, but that's what people were telling me in my comment section when I brought it up before. And then the other thing I wanted to say is about Dylan, and I'm certainly not going to, speak words for her or try and explain anything that you might see on social media. But the one thing I will say is all of the actions that I started seeing, like the ones when, for instance, when Drip Drop started reporting on her and saying that she was out with her friends dancing, those were all big sister events. So for her sorority, she has to sponsor a little sister. And so like when you saw those like outfits and stuff like that, those were all activities she does, and they're to build the bond between the sorority. And so, like, I'm not here trying to, I'm not going to put words in anyone's mouth or try, but I didn't take those pictures the same way. And I thought that it was probably a healing thing for her to get back active with her community like that. So, but anyway, I just wanted to make those two statements because they both kind of stood out to me when you guys were talking. And I just wanted to add that.
I've never looked at any outfit she wore. I don't care. I'm not looking at the pictures to try to symbolize what she was doing or what this and that. Have I had questions in regards to a 911 call? Of course, I think we all have. But like I said, I just wait until trial. She's going to have to speak. We're going to see if it makes sense or if it doesn't. At that time frame, I think we're going to have a better ability to judge based off of what we hear and what we see directly from her mouth of what's valuable to the case and what's not. Obviously, like I said, I don't like the fact that 8 hours were wasted with potential people losing their life that could. Nobody's going to convince me that somebody couldn't have possibly been still breathing or alive out of the people that were attacked, because I've seen people get stabbed 100 times that were still alive an hour later. So, to think that nobody was still possibly breathing affects me a little bit. But, I'll just wait. I'll see what she has to say, and then I'll judge based off of her own words on how I feel. I think that's the best way to do it. So.
It'll be interesting to know what Batanti said Bethany knew, and that was exculpatory,
That would be very interesting because it's rare that you hear stuff like that come out, and people saying, hey, we think this person has exculpatory evidence, and yet, you haven't heard even a peep from them. So you're right. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting.
I think WSU Mom Kim might be a little bit further back in the live stream, but we were talking about why initially they were at the Banfield. And I think that she's saying there was a 911 call at 3 a.m. for an odd Sigma Chi. I don't know what that means, but 3 a.m. was right around the Banfield time when we were discussing it earlier. So I'm just curious.
She probably means OD.
Oh, yeah. Have you guys ever heard that? Because I don't know if they've released all the police reports from that night, or if you could still obtain them through a Freedom of Information Act. Well, they did, because they had Charlie Brown die that night. Question.
I don't even think we're ever going to hear the 911 call from the inside the house the day of the day after the 9/11. I don't think we're going to even hear the 911 call.
No.
Yeah, that's public information. I'm
think they have
surprised
to.
that at some point I would think so, but in Idaho, here we go again. I just think they're going to find a way around it, and we just may never get to hear it, because I would think bits and pieces of it would have at least already been released. But then again, here I sit and I stand corrected because it's not released. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Jim, just like, why call your friends over to the house? Like this, the sorority and the sorority and the fraternity. Why call them over to the house well before calling 911? And then you had the 911 call, which was made by a group of people dialing from either Bethany's phone or Dylan's phone, and they were passing it around in a circle. And where does this unconscious person BS come from?
Well, I think that's what's going to be the most interesting thing to hear is what was legitimately said that they feel as though needs to be so hidden outside of, we have a tragedy, some of my friends seem like they've been stabbed, or I mean, what could possibly have been said that has to be so withheld and so hidden? Were names utilized? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
I vacillate between two things with the unconscious person. I vacillate between trusting what we read in Bloom's book, because he did bring out some of the standard procedures for that office, and it did sound like he had like a first person interview, and that she should have clarified, because they could have sent a forensic unit with the initial ambulances, but she did put out the standard. They said they were understaffed and underpaid, and she just put out the standard unconscious person. So we don't know if that's true, but that's the explanation that we've heard from somebody who please have some inside information. The other thing I wonder though is, AR, we've both done videos on this, which is when Lucky went directly to that reporter, and I have screenshots of her text messages and different things, her actually admitting to the fact that there was a fifth victim that was brought to the hospital. And so when I hear the unconscious person, what always comes to my head is that one of the roommates stumbled on this, or somebody on the scene was traumatized by what they saw and fainted. And that was the unconscious person. But I vacillate between the unconscious person being those two things, and it could be both. I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive, but
after doing that piece with Lucky, the video with Lucky Work, where we discussed that, I actually was able to reach out to not only the reporter, but also who she worked for, and they absolutely confirmed exactly that. And they're not backing down from exactly what they said, that there was another victim and that, you know, there was more to the story. So that's very interesting, because obviously I believed what Lucky was saying because he had proof through the text and everything, but I reached out personally myself too and got very much the same and even more info, to be honest. So very interesting.
AR, do you think that possibly the FBI could get involved eventually with the case? Because I mean, it was the local highway patrol and the FBI that raided his parents' house in the early morning hours and arrested him. Do you think that possibly the FBI may get involved if they see the sheer incompetence of the Bill Thompson and the state of Idaho?
I mean, that's a good question. I believe the FBI is probably involved, even at this point. I think they always have been. Whether they're going to step up to the plate and actually be a part of anything is all going to be determined on their own investigative, deal that they did. If they deem that Brian Kober is most likely not their prime suspect in what they were investigating, then they'll send their experts to the trial to testify to the data that they collected, but I don't believe that they'll pursue charges or anything of that nature. I feel as though, just from my personal experience, when the feds have a case against you, they take you down. I've been taken down by the feds quickly and without remorse, man. They come and they come hard. And they have more resources. They've got more capability to try, and they can do it in a much more private manner than any state can. So if they had a case against Brian Kober, we would have already heard it.
I agree.
Wait, with Chris McGraw? Oh, are you just being funny?
No, with AR, we would have heard it.
We right now would be in a federal courtroom right now if the feds had charges against Brian Kober. Anything. Even if it was a terrorist, he stole chemicals to build a bomb.
So you're saying that's not true?
It's absolutely not true, because he'd be in a federal indictment already. That's a crime. That's a federal crime. They take that very seriously, especially on a college university campus. They take you down hardcore, and they don't joke, they don't play. They indict you, they charge you, and they prosecute you, and you go sit in a federal penitentiary. They don't have that against Brian Kohler. They don't have charges of him breaking and entering and trying to get chemical. None of that. No, they would have had charges. We don't even need to discuss it. It's not true. It's not true. Anyway, sorry. That was my 2 cents.
I can sleep well knowing I'm not going to get blown up tonight. Thank you so much. You're the first person that's told me that. I can't believe people even believe this stuff.
I mean, just like we've all heard that the narrative about a cartel hit on the house. Now we all here on this panel know that if it was a cartel hit, cartels don't use knives to kill you. They use guns and they blow the crap out of your house. So I don't believe it was a cartel hit.
I've never worked with the cartel or known the cartel. I mean, I've been housed with them in the penitentiary, and they're definitely no joke. But I don't know how they conduct their business because I'm not a part of it. Never have been. So
I've read and heard stories about them hacking people to pieces with like machetes and stuff, but
I've seen them take each other apart in a penitentiary with literally a razor blade. So people talk about guns. If there's many of ways of handling business, as I call it. So I don't know, but makes for good stories, makes for good money making to tell those. I don't know how to explain it outside of that.
I hear Twiz.
Yeah, I know you're going 100 miles an hour, Twiz. I can hardly even talk into a headset, and I haven't even looked at the comments in here. I probably should be doing that, but
that's slow typing. What are you guys talking about?
Shit, who knows what we're talking about?
Should hear me go full speed.
All right, hey, we've been live for almost 3 hours. Let's wrap this live up and talk behind the scenes. Kiki, you got anything going on this week, or AR, you as well?
Jen and I. Go ahead.
Well, I'm really off tonight. I'm sorry I keep talking over you, AR, and it's just you. So I feel bad. My apologies for.
No, do it. Do it more. Do it more.
I'm gonna get back into a regular schedule just because this is streaming to my channel. I was doing Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m., but I'm trying to do them later at night. So you'll have to stay tuned about Monday. I don't know if I'm going to be doing Monday, but I definitely have a members live on Tuesday at 10. And I'm going to open the panel up, but I have so much to share with you guys. And I put together some great videos I'm going to be releasing tomorrow. So, and I just want to say I miss all my Discord friends. So I hope you're all doing well. And that's about it. I'm happy you invited me on panel tonight. It's been really fascinating conversation with the three of you. So thank you, Robert, for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Jennifer, not the crazy one, created a group called Kiki's Orphans.
I just told that today. I felt so special when Christy told me that. Thank you, guys. You're
not the crazy one. Psycho Jen.
I guess my wife, Jennifer, not the Psycho Jen, unless you're around her enough, but she says Monday and Tuesday she wants me to go live. I guess one of the days I'll be talking true crime, and then the other day she wants me to get a little more personable and have kind of a discussion of when I lost a loved one, a daughter that I adopted back in my younger years when I was, a part of the prison affiliation, and I adopted a young little girl from one of the affiliation females that was a drug addict, and I raised her as my own, and Jen was just getting to know her when she passed at the age of 11, and she feels as though it should be the first time that I ever bring out and really kind of discuss it, because there's been people that, you know, have come at me in regards to I've never lost a child, or I don't understand what death comes from a loved one. So we're gonna do a live in regards to my brother's life being taken, and then also the young lady I was raising as a daughter of my own. So a little more personal side of things. So if you guys want to tune in, it would probably be the evening time in Tuesday my time. So I'll definitely post some sort of thumbnail or link, but it's gonna be the first time I actually opened up into some that in depth and that deep. So
I'm so sorry for your loss, AR.
I appreciate it. It's gonna be the first time. I'm telling you, it's gonna be probably a little emotional. I've never talked about it. I know in my writings, as many of you guys know, I'm working on a book, but you know, I kind of go in depth into the past like that with the young lady, but also in how Jen and I became into a relationship and broke all the odds within the penitentiary of an actual interracial relationship after I left, you know, my affiliation that was very political and very racially based. I was able to get out of that, and so it'll be kind of a cool live. It's going to be a little more personable than I think people have seen me get, and I know many people are always kind of interested in hearing a little more of the background and the actual personal story that's led me to come into the platform and grow and change my life, and so I'll be sharing some of that with you guys.
It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it should be. I hope I have a small crowd.
It's not going to be small.
It'll be huge.
I don't get huge crowds, but I'm appreciative of every crowd I do get. So
You get more likes on your post than any other creator per kappa. You really do.
I do.
I think it'll be fun coming up shortly when all the stuff starts coming out in court about how it's at least pretty likely Brian didn't do it, because all these people that are watching the Guilters channel, they're gonna have some questions.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about this behind the scene, guys. Stick around. Like always, guys, and thank you to my amazing panel tonight. Kiki, my brother AR, and Quiz. There can only be one Quiz. Everyone have a good night, and this is TCC out.